What do Falcons do? Rise up. Welcome to Rise Up Reactions, the show we talk all things Falcons, NFL, Georgia sports, and in general, the sports news of the day. I'm your host, Dr. Lee Denning, the Golden Hard Doc, and a lifelong sports fan, coming back to you real quick with a preview, at least from a fan perspective, of this coming week's game. The New Jersey Jets taking on the Atlanta Falcons in MetLife Stadium in glorious, you guessed it, New Jersey. So, the Jets having a relatively bad year. Tim Boyle is looking to be the starting quarterback this week because you have Zach Wilson, who's been playing bad and has been a little banged up. And then Aaron Rodgers, who unfortunately went down earlier this year, first 4 snaps of the season, with an Achilles injury. There's talk that he actually may come back if they're in a position to maybe make the playoffs. And this is certainly a game that the Jets are going to want to win. They really need to win against us in order to keep that hope alive, as they do have a little bit of turmoil within the division, and they're still technically alive for a playoff push. Very likely they're going to need to get to 9 or 10 wins to actually achieve that, meaning that they really don't have any margin for error at this point. They have an amazing defense, particularly their secondary, led by Sauce Gardner, who has basically been a shutdown corner for the last couple of years since being in the NFL. He was Defensive Rookie of the Year last year. He's played lights out this year as well, with the exception of maybe a couple of games or odd plays here and there. Most of the time, he's pretty stinking good. We've got a couple of injuries from a Falcons standpoint that we probably need to talk about. Jake Matthews is questionable. Nate Landman's questionable. They probably are going to play. And then you've got Breece Hall on the other end of it, who's a little questionable, but is probably going to play. And what I would really say here for the Falcons is Desmond Ridder, this is going to be one of his tougher tests against a secondary that is just absolutely phenomenal, one of the top 5 in the league. And with that in mind, I think there's a very easy key to success here. This is a team that has a solid defense, but is middling against the run. And we have a run offense with Parker Hesse coming back, who has been kind of the missing piece. Tight end, he's not a catching tight end, but he's an amazing blocking tight end. And he's kind of coming back in, getting to form, and stepping up and being that missing link that finally allowed us to get over 200 yards rushing this past week against the New Orleans Saints, who have, again, another middling rush defense. You could probably compare these two pretty closely in that regard. So I look for this to be a very low-scoring affair. I think the first team to get past 15 points is the team that's going to win this game. I think it's going to be a one-score game technically, but the way both teams are probably going to end up playing, it's probably going to feel like a bigger deficit for whoever ends up winning, even if it's only by like 5 or 6 points. And again, I don't think that the Atlanta Falcons are going to have too much to worry about from Tim Boyle, though he does have weapons. Again, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, they can certainly make some magic happen. So our run defense, which has been lights out, is going to have to remain lights out against a pretty good running back, young running back in Breece Hall. And again, we're going to have to play really good defense on the secondary as well to keep Garrett Wilson from absolutely torching us like Chris Olave just did this past week. We were very fortunate that Chris Olave went down, because I am wholly convinced if Chris Olave had stayed in that game the entire time, then the Saints would have found the end zone and possibly could have done another upset of the Falcons after being down for most of the game. All of that said, I do think the Falcons are going to win this game. We are currently, in the matchup predictor, it says we're basically 57 to 43% favored. When I was picking this game earlier in the week, most people actually had the Jets winning by a very slim margin. I am going to pick our Falcons to win here, to be up and go finally back to 500, to be 6-6. There is zero reason in the world that we should be 5-6 right now. We should absolutely be 7-4 and talking about continuing a win streak here. But it's just not the way the cards are dealt out. It's not the way the season went. We have to do some things differently, and if we don't, we're not going to make the playoffs. And again, I'm not sure that Arthur Smith is the right coach for us. I'm not sure Desmond Ridder is the right quarterback for us. I am sure that this is a must-win game for us. Basically, every game from here on out is a must-win. And just real quick, looking at our schedule coming up, this is a very winnable game with the offensive showing that they're going to have against us. Again, this is going to be a Tim Boyle-led offense. They were terrible last week. There should be no reason that Jesse Bates shouldn't feast on this. DeMarco Hellum should have a good game. Even Richie Grant, who had an awful November, should take a positive step forward after taking steps forward in the Saints game. But we have, the Jets. Then we come back home next week. We have the Buccaneers. We pretty much walloped them, even though the score doesn't show it. We should have won that game 30-13. We should have done that, but that was the 3-fumble game by Desmond Ridder. So if he hasn't been fumbling the ball lately, and again, he did have 2 turnovers last week, so we got to limit turnovers going forward. Then we get the Panthers in Charlotte. I don't think that's going to be a game that we have to worry too much about, though. Again, you have to come ready to play every single week in the NFL. We come back home for our final home game against the Colts, who are on a winning streak. The Colts is probably our hardest game that we have left, besides maybe the Saints as well at New Orleans. Then we end the year on 2 road games. We go to the Chicago Bears, who, even though they didn't play great football this last week, have a dynamic running quarterback, which has been our kryptonite. And then we also have, again, the Saints, who we just handled at home. But we're going to go to New Orleans. And again, I have said this time and time again. That is one of, if not the most intimidating environments I have ever been in as an NFL fan, especially for the opposing team. The decibels never dropped below 100 the entire time I was in that building. Great environment, great intimidating environment, and loud, just absolutely loud from start to finish of the game. Even the last time when the Saints were losing for most of the game and I was there to see us win, it still remained incredibly intimidating the entire time. So again, we have a winnable stretch, but it's a difficult stretch in some ways. We should win most of those games. Just looking at it, I could easily see 5 wins getting us up to 10. Being 10-7 by the end of the year potentially. I think 9-8 is a more realistic outcome here to win the division. It's not what I want to happen. I certainly predicted that we'd have 10 or 11 wins at the beginning of the season. We would have to win every single game, though, to get that 11th win. As of right now, we also don't know the time of the Saints game, which will probably end up being a 1 o'clock game, if we're being honest, because nobody wants to watch the NFC South play football, so they're probably not going to slot that game into primetime, even if it has playoff implications. But again, hopefully we emerge as the dominant team. This is the best year we're going to have to make the playoffs, and I do think that matters because we have never hosted a home playoff game in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. The last time we hosted a playoff game was the NFC Championship in 2016 before going on to lose the heartbreaking Super Bowl that now is the meme of the century for Atlanta. I'm hoping we can turn things around, and we really do need to win this game. It feels like a trap going into MetLife Stadium, but I do think that we have the talent to win overall. We're certainly better on offense. We just have to show it, and we have to stick to our guns with the run game. That's all I got for you today. Thank you so much. We finally passed 200 subscribers. I'm at 201 at the time I'm making this video. I feel ecstatic about that. Thank you so much to all of you who have chosen to support my channel and have continued to follow me as I make content, whether it be good, bad, stupid, whatever y'all want to call it. It means the world to me that you continue to follow me and continue to listen to me. Let's just help continue to grow this channel. The goal is still 500 by the end of the season. I don't think I'm going to hit that goal. I'm just not on pace for it. So, would love to maybe hit 250 by the end of the season. We'll see. I think it's going to depend on how the Falcons do as well and how many people actually care about what we have to say. But again, thank you so much for watching, liking, sharing, and subscribing. And as always, guys, rise up.